I went to celebrate Mother's Day at a restaurant when a waiter discreetly left a note on my table. At first, I thought it was just some promotional thing, maybe a coupon or a thank you message from the restaurant. But the way he placed it, almost like he was afraid of being seen, made me pause. My mother was sitting across from me, her eyes sparkling as she looked at the menu, completely unaware of what just happened. She was so excited about this dinner. I had been saving up for weeks to take her somewhere special because she deserved it. After all the years of sacrifices she made for me, all the time she put my needs ahead of her own, I wanted this night to be perfect. But then that note sat there, folded neatly beside my plate, and I couldn't stop staring at it. My hands unstotched to open it, but I didn't want my mom to notice. I waited until she was distracted, pointing out something on the dessert menu, and I carefully slid the note into my lap. My heart was pounding like I was doing something forbidden. When I unfolded it, I expected a generic, "Happy Mother's Day," or maybe a silly joke. Instead, I froze. The words written in hurried, shaky handwriting made my stomach drop. "Do not trust the man who just walked in. He is dangerous." I blinked at it, my breath catching in my throat. I read it again, convinced I must have misunderstood. But no, it was clear, simple, urgent. My eyes darted up, scanning the restaurant. Families filled the tables, laughter and chatter echoing across the room. Balloons tied to chairs, waiters carrying trays of food, mothers being showered with flowers and gifts. Everything looked normal. But then I noticed him. At the far end, near the entrance, a man stood awkwardly by the host's stand. He wasn't dressed like he belonged there. His clothes were wrinkled, his eyes sharp and restless, scanning the room in a way that didn't feel casual. He wasn't waiting for a table, he was watching. Watching too closely. I swallowed hard, folding the note back quickly before my mother noticed. My chest felt tight, and for a moment, I debated whether to say anything. What if it was some kind of prank? What if the waiter got it wrong? But then, why would he risk so much to warn me in secret? Something in me told me to trust that note. "Sweetheart, are you okay?" my mom asked, her voice breaking into my thoughts. She was smiling at me, oblivious to the storm building inside me. She looked so happy, so peaceful. I forced myself to smile back. "Yeah, Mom, I'm fine." But inside, I wasn't fine. I was anything but fine. The waiter came back a few minutes later, his eyes flicking toward me, and then toward the man still lingering by the entrance. I caught the smallest nod from him, like he was confirming that I had read the note. My stomach churned. Why us? Why tonight? Why Mother's Day of all days? I leaned forward and whispered to my mom, "I think we should leave after we eat. No hanging around." "Okay." She gave me a curious look but didn't ask questions. She trusted me, and for that, I was grateful. But leaving wasn't as simple as it sounded. Because when the food arrived and the restaurant grew busier, the man moved closer. At first, he pretended to look at the menu, then he drifted nearer to our section. He wasn't alone anymore. Another man had walked in, and they exchanged a quick glance that made my skin crawl. They weren't there for dinner. I could feel panic rising in my chest, but I forced myself to stay calm. My mother didn't deserve fear on this night. I had to protect her without scaring her. I took small bites of food, my hands trembling under the table. I kept watching the waiter, hoping he'd give me some kind of signal, something that would tell me what to do. Finally, when he came to refill our water, he leaned in just enough to whisper, "When I tell you, go through the kitchen. Don't argue. Don't look back." Then he straightened up, his expression blank as if he had said nothing. My pulse was racing so hard I thought I might faint. The kitchen. Escape. This wasn't some silly misunderstanding. Something real, something dangerous, was happening, and that note was the only thing standing between safety and disaster. I nodded ever so slightly, gripping my fork like it was a lifeline. My mom was talking about her childhood, sharing memories of her own mother, laughing at old stories. I tried to listen, I tried to smile, but inside I was screaming. Every second felt like an eternity. The men were moving closer. Their eyes locked on our table. They weren't even hiding it anymore. I excused myself to the restroom, just to get a moment to breathe, but when I passed one of them, his eyes met mine. Cold. Unblinking. My whole body went cold. I hurried back, fighting the urge to run. When I sat down, my mom reached across the table and touched my hand. "You look pale, sweetheart. Are you sure you're okay?" I nodded, swallowing hard. "I'm fine, Mom. I promise. Just tired. Then, without warning, the waiter appeared again. He placed a small dessert plate on the table, something we hadn't ordered. He smiled, but his eyes were intense. "Happy Mother's Day," he said warmly, then leaned just close enough to murmur, "Now, go." My heart lurched. My mom looked confused, but I stood immediately, forcing a smile. "Come on, Mom, let's go this way." Surprise. I pulled her hand gently, guiding her toward the kitchen doors. She laughed nervously, not understanding but trusting me completely. As soon as we pushed through the swinging doors, the smell of food and the clatter of dishes surrounded us. The staff looked startled, but the waiter was right behind us. "This way," he urged, pointing toward the back exit. My mom was asking questions, her voice trembling, but I couldn't answer. Not yet. I just pulled her along, every step feeling like it could be our last. Behind us, I heard voices shouting, the kitchen doors swinging open with force. They were following. The waiter barked at another staff member in a language I didn't understand, and suddenly pans clattered to the floor, blocking the path. We ran faster, my heart pounding so loudly I couldn't hear anything else. When we burst out the back door, the cold night air hit me like a slap. My mother gasped, clutching my arm. The waiter pointed toward the parking lot. "Go! Don't stop until you're in your car," he hissed. We didn't argue. We ran. My mother's heels clicked against the pavement, her breath ragged. I could hear footsteps behind us, but I didn't dare look back. When we finally reached the car, I fumbled with the keys, my hands shaking so violently I dropped them. My mom scooped them up, her hands steadier than mine, and shoved them into the lock. We got inside, slammed the doors, and I hit the lock button just as two shadows appeared at the edge of the lot. My mother was crying now, her hands pressed to her mouth. I turned the engine on and sped out of there, my whole body trembling, tears stinging my eyes. We didn't stop driving for miles. My mom kept asking what happened, who those men were, why the waiter helped us. And the truth was, I didn't know. I had no answers. All I had was that note, still crumpled in my pocket, the ink smudged from my sweaty hands. The silence inside the car was heavy, almost suffocating. My mother sat beside me, her hands gripping the edge of her seat, her chest rising and falling quickly as she tried to catch her breath. The lights of the city blurred past us as I drove aimlessly, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. I had no destination in mind. I just needed distance, space, safety. Finally, after what felt like forever, I pulled into an empty parking lot near a closed bookstore. The engine hummed quietly as I turned to face my mom. Her eyes were red, her lipstick smudged from where she had covered her trembling mouth. She looked at me with a mixture of confusion and fear. "Tell me what's going on," she said softly, her voice breaking. "What happened back there?" I swallowed hard, pulling the crumpled note from my pocket and handing it to her. She unfolded it, her hands shaking, and read the words aloud in a whisper. "Do not trust the man who just walked in. He is dangerous." Her eyes widened, and she looked at me like she was searching for answers I didn't have. "A waiter slipped that to me," I explained, my voice trembling. "He told us to run through the kitchen. Mom, those men, they weren't just there for dinner. They were watching us." She covered her mouth again, tears streaming down her face. "But why? Why us? What do they want?" I didn't know. And the not knowing was almost worse than anything else. I pulled out my phone with shaky hands and dialed the police. My voice wavered as I explained what had happened, the strange men, the waiter's warning, the chase through the kitchen. They told me to stay put, that an officer would meet us at the parking lot. For the first time since we'd left the restaurant, I allowed myself to breathe, clinging to the hope that help was on the way. When the police arrived, 2 officers stepped out of their cruiser. I explained everything again, my words tumbling out too fast, my hands gesturing wildly. They listened carefully, taking notes, asking questions. My mother sat quietly, tears rolling down her cheeks as she clutched her purse tightly to her chest. "What about the waiter?" I asked desperately. "He's the one who warned us. He risked everything to help us. What if those men go after him?" One of the officers nodded. "We'll check on him. Do you remember what he looked like?" I described him in detail, the dark hair, the nervous eyes, the urgency in his voice. The officer wrote it down, then reassured us they would send someone back to the restaurant. But even as he said it, I couldn't shake the feeling that the waiter was already in danger. After giving our statements, the officers told us to go home and stay safe. Lock your doors, don't open them for anyone you don't know. If you see anything suspicious, call us immediately. Their words should have comforted me, but instead, they filled me with dread. That night, when we finally made it home, I tucked my mother into bed like she used to do for me when I was a child. She was still trembling, still whispering prayers under her breath. I kissed her forehead and promised her everything would be okay, even though I wasn't sure if it was true. When I lay down in my own bed, sleep refused to come. Every creak of the house, every rustle of leaves outside made me jump. I kept replaying the night in my mind, the moment the note was slipped onto my table, the man's cold stare, the waiter's desperate whisper. And then, just before dawn, my phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. I hesitated before answering, my hands shaking. When I pressed the phone to my ear, a low voice spoke. They were not after you. They were after her. My blood ran cold. Who is this? I whispered. But the line went dead. I sat there in the dark, my heart pounding so loud it drowned out everything else. After everything that happened, after all the confusion, this was the first time someone had hinted at the truth. Whoever those men were, whatever their reason, they hadn't been targeting me. They had been targeting my mother. I rushed to her room, standing in the doorway just to watch her sleep. She looked so peaceful, so innocent, her chest rising and falling with steady breaths. But now I knew, someone out there wanted to harm her, and I didn't know why. The next day, I went back to the restaurant. It was closed, the lights off, the door locked. A small paper sign was taped to the glass, closed until further notice. My stomach twisted. What had happened to the waiter? Did he pay the price for helping us? I pressed my forehead against the glass, tears burning my eyes. Thank you, I whispered into the silence. Wherever you are, thank you. When I got back into my car, I found another note tucked under my windshield wiper. My hands shook as I pulled it free, terrified of what it might say. In the same hurried handwriting as before, the words read, "Protect her. Don't ask questions. Just protect her." My chest tightened as I clutched the note to my chest. I didn't know who was leaving them. I didn't know why my mother was in danger. But I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I would not let anyone hurt her. Not while I was still breathing. I sat in my car staring at that note for what felt like forever. My breath came in shallow gasps, and my mind raced in every direction. Who was writing these? Was it the same waiter, or someone else? And why was my mother in danger? I drove home slowly, every turn of the wheel heavy with dread. When I walked inside, I found my mom in the kitchen humming softly as she made tea, as if nothing had happened. The sight of her, fragile yet radiant, broke something in me. I wanted to scream, to tell her everything, but I couldn't. The note's instructions echoed in my mind, "Don't ask questions. Just protect her, sweetheart," she said with a gentle smile. "You look exhausted. Come sit with me." I sat at the table, watching her pour the tea. My hands trembled around the cup, though I didn't drink it. For a long moment, I just stared at her, trying to memorize every detail. Her laugh lines, her tired but kind eyes, the way she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't just seeing my mom as my mom. I was seeing her as someone the world was after, someone who carried secrets I didn't know. Later that night as she slept, I searched through the house like a madman. Old boxes, photo albums, drawers stuffed with yellowing papers. I was looking for something, anything, that might explain why strangers wanted her gone. And then I found it. At the bottom of a box in the attic, hidden beneath layers of old clothes, was a faded envelope. Inside was a stack of letters, all written in the same hurried handwriting as the notes I'd been receiving. My blood ran cold as I read them. They weren't new, they were decades old. Warnings, pleas, threats, all circling back to one thing: my mother had once testified against a dangerous man. I sank onto the attic floor, the truth crashing down on me like a tidal wave. My mother, the gentle, selfless woman who raised me, had once been caught in the crossfire of something dark, something violent. And all these years later, it wasn't over. When I confronted her in the morning, she froze. Tears filled her eyes as she realized what I had discovered. "I wanted to protect you from this," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I thought it was over. I thought if I stayed quiet, they would forget. Forget. I whispered harshly. Mom, they followed us into a restaurant. They chased us through a kitchen. They were going to. My voice broke and I couldn't finish the sentence. She reached across the table, her hand covering mine. I did what I had to do. Years ago, I saw something terrible. I couldn't stay silent. I testified, and he went to prison. But his family, his people, they never forgave me. Her words were like ice in my veins. It all made sense now. The notes, the men, the danger. My mother wasn't just a random target. She had enemies. Real enemies. And somehow, they had found her again. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, tears burning my eyes. Because I wanted you to have a normal life, she said, her voice breaking. I didn't want you living in fear the way I have all these years. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to shout at her for keeping this from me. But looking into her tear-streaked face, all I felt was love. She had carried this burden alone, all to protect me. And now, it was my turn to protect her. That night, I stayed awake, every creak of the house making me jump. I sat by her bedroom door, a baseball bat in my lap, determined to keep her safe. But somewhere around 3 a.m. exhaustion pulled me under. When I woke, the house was quiet. Too quiet, I rushed to my mother's room, my heart in my throat. The bed was empty, the sheets still warm. Panic clawed at my chest as I tore through the house, calling her name. No answer. Then I saw it, a third note, left on the kitchen counter. The same hurried handwriting. She is safe. Don't follow. Trust me. My legs gave out beneath me. I collapsed onto the floor, clutching the note in my hands. My heart screamed at me to run, to fight, to find her. But something in me knew. I had to trust whoever was behind these warnings. The waiter, the anonymous caller, the unseen protector. Hours passed. I sat in that kitchen, shaking, praying, waiting. And then, just as the sun began to rise, the front door opened. My mother walked in. Her hair was disheveled, her clothes wrinkled, but she was alive. She was safe. She collapsed into my arms, sobbing. It's over, she whispered. He's gone. The man I testified against, he died in prison. His people have been disbanded. They wanted me to know I'm free now. I held her tightly, my own tears soaking into her hair. For the first time in years, the shadow that had haunted her was gone. And I realized then, as I rocked her in my arms, that Mother's Day had been saved in the strangest, most terrifying way possible. Because that note, slipped onto my table by a trembling waiter, had not only saved our lives, it had given me the truth. It had shown me the weight my mother had carried for decades, the courage she had hidden beneath her quiet smile, the strength she had passed on to me without me even realizing it. And as the morning light filled the kitchen, I knew one thing with unshakable certainty: no matter what came, I would never let her carry a burden alone again.